remember Captain America: The Winter Soldier when they were trying to get Cap to sign on to the Accords, and he was like, "Look, these type of agencies, they're run by people, and people have agendas." Well, earlier this week, a Google executive was caught on film. Was secretly recorded, saying how they aim to change the algorithm and do all they can to facilitate Trump's loss in 2020. And now they were caught on they were caught on film saying this, and that video has since been taken off of at least YouTube. I'm not sure if it's on BitChute, but this is really where we're at when it comes to these gigantic tech corporations. They are quick to impose their own ideology onto their platforms, which has, which due to a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, I'll try to condense it down to this. They're not allowed to do that. When they act when they act like they're a publisher, they're not responsible for what's said on the platform. But when they act as an editor, they are. And they've been acting as editors for even since Hillary's election. I mean, well, not election, but like the 2016 election. They've been acting as editors, shadow banning, really silencing voices that they disagree with, and being based in America. That's a problem because we have our Constitution, and if this is your home base, then you have to operate via our laws. And our laws is, hey, if you have something to say and this person is a publisher, then boom, they what's the name? You have the right to use their platform. I don't think it's publisher. I think it's like town square or something like that. Like they operate as a town square, as if, it's just the platform. You can't they're not supposed to deny people. They're not supposed to knock them off. But Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, so many people have come close. I myself, I've had tweets taken down that didn't harass or, say anything too crass towards people. So they have definitely been stepping over the bounds when it comes to what can and can't be said on their platforms, which is all good. But then they have to take on the editorial role, and they lose a lot of protections from lawsuits. You see what I'm saying? So this has been with the rise of these tech monopolies. There's been calls for to break them up, for antitrust investigations, and some are underway. But right now we have Rep. Dan Crenshaw, who's wearing a very stylish eye patch. I love that eye patch. He lost his eye in Iraq. He's I think he's like fresh. I think he's a freshman, and I've always, really respect this guy. So he's going at a Google executive in this clip. And I've been wanting to talk about this because they do censor. Like, I know this channel will probably never get anywhere, but it's very important to me to make sure that I maintain and get my voice out there regardless, But yeah, he's about to get into this, and we're about to watch. Let's go and comment.
From Texas for 5 minutes, Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for some of the thoughtful discussion on how you combat terrorism online. I think there's worthy debates to be had there. And there's good questions on whether some of this content provides education so that we know of the bad things out there, or whether it's radicalizing people. Those are hard discussions to have.
Okay, so what he's talking about here is that they've been putting out a lot of media over the last 2-3 years that say how you have these different content creators who seemingly come out of nowhere, at least in their world. But if you're from the internet, that's how they ended up building their huge followings, is by being here and putting out content. And, so what the mainstream media has done has really just like called them racist, misogynist. They're putting out radical views. Oh my goodness. They've targeted people such as PewDiePie, Tim Pool, like I was saying with the Alex Jones and Paul Joseph Watsons. And the crazy part is that that's why they're like, with Trump winning, they're like, oh my goodness, now for 2020, they really are trying to ramp up shutting down opposing voices. And that's not really what we do here in the United States.
I don't know that we're going to solve them today. But the problem is that the testimony doesn't stop there. The policies at your social media companies do not stop there. It doesn't stop at the clear-cut lines of terrorism and terrorist videos and terrorist propaganda. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what we're talking about. It goes much further than that. It goes down the slippery slope of what speech is appropriate for your platform and the vague standards that you employ in order to decide what is appropriate. And this is especially concerning given the recent news and the recent leaked emails from Google. They show that labeling mainstream conservative media as Nazis is a premise upon which you operate. It's not even a...
Yeah, see, that's been a tactic, is just to throw that word out there to a point where it really doesn't. Black guy from Jersey, was called a Nazi by another black guy from Jersey simply because of a misunderstanding that after continuously talking to him, even he was like, okay, yeah, I get where you're coming from. So it's like, come on. Like, it's been, particularly on the blue team, it's been so overly emotional. They really just kicked it up like 1,000,003 notches after losing to Trump with the Trump derangement syndrome. And so it's more evident now than ever who stands on which side. And unfortunately, if you're going to be operating a platform in such a manner, you can't pick a side.
Question, according to those emails. The emails like, given that Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Dennis Prager are Nazis, given that that's a premise, what do we do about it? 2 of 3 of these people are Jewish, very religious Jews, and yet you think they're Nazis. It begs the question, what kind of education do people at Google have? So they think...
Word up. Because when you so you sit there and tell me, hey, that person's a Nazi, that person's a racist. Oh my goodness, they say the most vile and vicious things. You know what I'm gonna do? I go and listen to them. Like, it has it's what's called I guess the Streisand effect. It has the exact opposite, and then you go listen to them. It's like, wait, what are you talking about? It doesn't sound like that bad. I don't agree with them on everything, like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, or Prager, who I'm not familiar with PragerU like that. I still don't really watch. My time's limited as far as content that I can consume. So I'm not really familiar with Prager, but I used to watch Ben show, and I've definitely watched, that clip with Jordan Peterson. Like, how many clips with Jordan Peterson are there out there? Pardon my French, out there on the internet. So yeah, and you sit there and listen to him, and he always comes from a thoughtful, well-meaning place. It may not sound the best. It may sound a bit harsh, but at the same time, there's no maliciousness behind it. And it rarely, if ever, has anything to do with race. The only time I really see almost anyone talk about race is after it's brought up by somebody else, and then the conversation goes and snowballs, but if you're not even really talking about race, and it's just on how we approach and treat each other, then I think that's something completely different, because the real world and the internet are 2 completely different things. And sometimes, I think there's been studies, or a study out that says that the internet really didn't have that great of an effect on the 2016 election, because most people weren't on these social media sites. These sites, bots, avatars, these types of things, they do exist, which is one of the reasons I sincerely don't take too many people seriously at all, because they may not even be people.
That religious Jews are Nazis. 3 of these people had family members killed in the Holocaust. Ben Shapiro is the #1 target of the alt-right, and yet you people operate off the premise that he's a Nazi.
Does alt-right even really exist? Like, the one person that I know was claiming alt-right was Richard Spencer, and once again, they just come across as douchebags, but when you sit there and listen to what they have to say, I can get where you're coming from. I can get where you're coming from. I don't have to agree. But I can respect your opinion, and in a lot of cases, just leave it over there. But as far as repping alt-right, I've seen more people rep Kekistan but is Kekistan alt-right? It's the media's done so well just making this word salad jambalaya that it's all meaningless. It's all nonsense.
It's pretty disturbing. And it gets to the question, do you believe in hate speech? How do you define that? Can you give me a quick definition right now? Is it written down somewhere, Google? Can you give me a definition of hate speech?
Congressman, yes. So hate speech, again, as updated in our guidelines now, extends to superiority over protected groups to justify discrimination, violence, and so on, based on.
Okay, so protected groups. And maybe I think this is where we need to come to an end with our affirmative action. I think it's time. I think it's time to let affirmative action go a man and woman for themselves. Okay? Because it's just way too many ways to get money out here. For you to be like, oh my goodness, oh my blackness is holding me back. No, it's not your blackness. It's either you either have a lazy spirit or, circumstances are a thing. But to sit there and just like lay it back all the way back to slavery and stuff like that is just one of the funniest and most jacked up things that actually happens in this country on a daily basis.
A number of defining characteristics, whether that's race, sexual orientation, veteran status.
Do you have an example of Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or Dennis Prager engaging in hate speech? Do you have one example off the top of your head?
So, Congressman, we evaluate individual piece of content based on that content rather than based on the speaker.
Okay.
But see, that's the thing. If you're talking about the individual piece of content, right? Then you should have like several examples of any of them being just vulgar and racist and sexist and homophobic and all this other stuff. The problem is just that it's like, oh, well, it's at our discretion. Thusly, it's about how we feel, how it emotionally makes us feel, not about any kind of logic. So thusly, that was a bunk answer.
Let's get to the next question. Do you believe speech can be violence? All right, there's not can you incite violence? That is very clearly not protected. But can speech just be violence? Do you believe that speech that isn't specifically calling for violence can be labeled violence and therefore harmful to people? Is that possible?
No. That that's the thing. My man is about to play this game and dance around this shit, but the answer is one word and it's no. Violence and speech are two completely different things. And he made it very clear that he's not talking about inciting violence. He's talking about, oh, do you consider me calling you a bad word the same thing as me stabbing you in your stomach? All right? This is proper context and framing for this. Does this gentleman, I think it's Mr. Sattler, does he believe that, oh man, what a Dbag is the exact same thing as gutting you?
Congressman, I'm not sure I fully understand the distinction you're drawing. Certainly, again, incitement to violence or things that are encouraging dangerous behavior, those are things that would be against our...
And that's the thing, see? He's like, I don't understand. Thusly, that's a yes. He does believe that they're the exact same thing. This is very, very cut and dry. And that's because he probably came up here in the West, soft as baby poop, man. I mean, like, a low T, just... I mean, there are people who go through their entire lives without ever getting into a fist fight. I couldn't tell you this because I'm from the hood, but like I know there are people who've gone through their entire lives without ever getting into any kind of physical violence. So,
policies.
Here's the thing: when you call somebody a Nazi, you can make the argument that you're inciting violence, and here's how. As a country, we all agree that Nazis are bad. We actually invaded an entire continent to defeat the Nazis. It's
USA.
Normal to say hashtag punch a Nazi because there's this common thread in this country that they're bad and that they're evil and that they should be destroyed. So when you're operating off of that premise, and frankly it's a good premise to operate on, well, what you're implying then is that it's okay to use violence against them. When you label them, one of the most powerful social media companies in the world labels people as Nazis, you can make the argument that's inciting violence. What you're doing is wholly irresponsible. It doesn't stop there. A year ago, it was also made clear that your fact check system is blatantly targeted at conservative newspapers. Do you have any comment on that? Are you aware of the story I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with necessarily the specific story, Congressman. I am aware that from all political viewpoints, we sometimes get questions of this sort. I can say that our fact check labels generally are done algorithmically based on markup and follow up our policies.
For the record, they specifically...
Really quickly, I just want to point out, and I'm going to use this as the title of this video, but Google was Russia the entire time as far as interference and trying to, make a certain, make a certain outcome happen in a U.S. election. Yeah, y'all sitting there talking about Russia. It was Google the entire time. Oh my goodness. I feel like we're at the end of a Scooby-Doo mystery, and it's like, oh man, old man Willie, we got you now. Mrs. Winters, you know, like that's what I'm like right now. I'm about to do a video on them I think it's Congress demanding Mueller to come and testify on the 17th of July, and it's blowing my mind how they're just like, oh yeah, we're doing great. This is perfect. No one notices how full of shit we are.
Typically target conservative news media, and oftentimes they have a fact check on there that doesn't even reference the actual article, but Google makes sure that it's right next to it so as to make people understand that that one is questionable, even though when you actually read through it, it has nothing to do with it. A few days ago, and this goes to you, Ms. Burkett, one of my constituents posted photos on Facebook of Republican women daring to say that there are women for Trump. Facebook took down that post right away with no explanation. Is there any explanation for that?
Without seeing it, it's hard for me to opine. That doesn't violate our policies, but I'm happy to follow up on the specific example with you.
Thank you. Listen, here's what it comes down to. If we don't share the values of free speech, I'm not sure where we go from here. This practice of silencing millions and millions of people, it will create wounds and divisions in this country that we cannot heal from. This is extremely worrisome. You've created amazing platforms. We can do amazing things with what these companies have created. But if we continue down this path, it'll tear us apart. You do not have a constitutional obligation to enforce the First Amendment, but I would say that you absolutely have an obligation to enforce American values, and the First Amendment is an underpinning of American values that we should be protecting until the day we die. Thank you, and thank you for indulging.
I like that guy. I really do. And that's the end of that video. And subsequently, I think that's where I'm going to draw the line at over here too. But Crenshaw is a good dude. I really, like, I get good vibes from him. I get good energy from him because he seems like somebody that cares and somebody that's young enough to actually know what the heck he's talking about. Not like all the rest of the old fogies that they got up there at the moment. So with that being said, all the internet stuff. Like it if you liked it. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice. Share, because sharing is caring. And speak. Let me know what you think. I mean, has Google gone too far? Has Facebook gone too far? This is, like, it's messed up. It really is. And I know most people generally, like, look, I got my own problems. I got things I got to worry about, man. My kids need this. My girlfriend need that. My wife need that. Like, trust me, we as Americans, we got so many three other things to worry about. But when it comes to this stuff, they sit there and scream about Russia, bruh. It's always look directly in, look, where was Shield hiding? You know what? We're gonna wrap it all the way back to Captain America: Winter Soldier. Where was Shield hiding? Right there. Where was Hydra hiding? Right there in Shield. Boom. Until the next one.